Well, I've been trying to think all afternoon how to condense the last 25 years of my thinking into a little bit of time. Um, and the whole thing fits into Lisa Feldman Barrett's framework of the brain as a network. So I mean that's as I say whatever I'm saying, it's within that framework. Um, so if you don't have an idea what I'm talking about, it won't make sense at all. As it is, when I try to think of how to explain what I am, and which I think there is some correlate to what you are. Um, it the there's so many crooks and turns in the ways that you could explain it that it's like I have no idea where my brain is going to go with this. I I have a rough idea, kind of, in a way, but I really don't know. It's we'll see. Um, so the what's the central issue here? I was trying to tell you what happened when I realized. I mean, in the last part of being human, most recent. What my progression had been like as I learned more and more about what I think reality is. And so I got to the point of realizing that there was no free will. It just, it doesn't work. It's just no way it can work. So how do I look at myself if I have been assuming, I wasn't conscious of it, but I was assuming all my life that I had free will, and now I find that I don't. So that should change the way I look at myself. That's what I think, right? So there are some obvious things, implications that the fact that people don't have free will, the implications of it. One is nobody can really be ultimately responsible for what they do. I mean, we have to hold them responsible and incarcerate them or put them away somewhere where they can't hurt themselves or other people. But that doesn't mean we blame them for being the way they are. See, there's a difference in the need to restrain certain people because they're defective, right? Who decides who's defective? That's fucked. But we have to try to protect the majority of the members of society. That's what society does, right? That's how they survive, right? They protect the people that are part of the society. It's getting more complicated all the time. I mean, our situation on the planet is getting more complicated. But back to another complicated situation is how do I look at myself if I know that I don't have free will? So what am I? I am not a person who is in control of their destiny, who makes decisions and does things. I mean, my brain makes decisions, but it's just going on. Well, some of the stuff I get to see it. I know some of the stuff that's going on because it sort of comes through my my conscious apertures. But a lot of I don't really know what it does with it, how it draws conclusions, and it's just a total rat's nest in there. So there it was. Where's the thread? Such a beautiful line of thought, and it just trailed off into nothing. Oh, it's an interesting thing about being stoned is that it sort of exposes you to the underbelly of your brain. I mean, it's weak underbelly, right? You get to see where it has difficulty with things. And it's sort of interesting. It's sort of like a way of taking a microscope to the underside. But what the hell was I talking about before? How we look at ourselves. Oh, without free will. So the obvious thing was you can't blame people, right? So you can't either feel like superior or inferior to people because we're all just following the program, right? We're all just interpreting, our brains are just interpreting the data they have received up to now, and they don't have, if their brain could figure a way for them to interact with the world in a way that would be, it's what Lisa calls it, that would lower their body budget, they would do it, right? God. I told you it was complicated. If you if you find yourself bored with looking at me think, try looking at the art behind me. I'm looking at it, which is not helping my thinking any, but it is interesting. That's probably because I did it all. But how do I think of myself? So the obvious thing is not to blame people. Right. So when I find myself feeling superior or inferior, now how I find myself is I learn how to watch the thoughts that go through my head. And I think that's the only thing really meditation is good for. That you do it long enough to see how the thoughts are moving through your brain. And now, in a lot of meditation traditions, they say, just note the thought and let it go. But I don't say that. I say, note the thought and ask where it came from. And ask if you, in your present incarnation, would approve of that source or would approve of the logic of that source, or the value system of that source, or whatever. So as you look at your thoughts, and this is not to cast judgment on yourself, I'm going to say, but you judge your thoughts. You say, where did this thought come from? Where did I get this from? And, well, that's just a general rule. But the thing about coming to grips with no free will is watching for instances where I feel superior to other people. My brain built network that recognizes when I elevate myself above my peers. Which, I think is perfectly natural. I'm not going to defend myself or anything, but that's what I have a tendency to do, I think we all have a tendency to try to find a way to look at ourselves in a favorable light. And sometimes that's relative to our peer. So we say, how am I better than this person? Or how is this other person better than me? Well, when you find yourself having that thought, I ask myself, what's the framework within which I'm asking the question? I mean, to think that someone is better than me in some way is really just to say they had a more successful program. Somehow their brain interacted with the environment in a way that allowed them to succeed where maybe I wouldn't have. So, we all are just led into a position by the things that interact with us, and then the way we therefore interact with the world. It just pulls us along. So so when you find those thoughts, that superior, inferior, just recognize that that they're wrong. That everybody's just playing a part. So that thought is just wrong. It's not that it's good or bad. It's just that it's illogical. It doesn't make sense. Within whose value system? That's the question. Within whose value system is someone better than another someone else? And the value systems are relative. It just depends on where you are in the world. I mean, there's not infinite variation, but there's a lot of variation in that characteristic that will elevate someone, put them in high esteem in one culture, will lower them in another culture. So it's a toss-up. It's just the luck of the draw. If you if you end up someplace where you fit in nicely, where you're near the top of the heap. And if you're not, it's just your luck of the draw too. So I mean, it's my misfortune in a way, I think, that I never understood business. I didn't have any exposure to business. And it's like a totally mystery to me how the economy works. I mean, how the farmer's market works. How do those people make a living? How many turnips do you have to sell? How much does it cost to grow a turnip? It's like there's all these considerations, and they're like, how do people figure it out enough to make a living? I don't have the background to understand that. Maybe I could get it in some way, but I don't have it at present. So as you learn to monitor your thoughts, your brain really is building a network which will recognize when your thought errs in a certain way, and will notify the rest of the network that an error has occurred. The human, the brain, based on prior experience, has made a judgment that's no longer relevant in the world as we know it to be. So what was happening there was my brain was restructuring its perception of who it was and what the world is. And my brain, now this is I'm not sure how variable this is. My brain got stuck with the idea that it got stuck with an idea, and then that idea flittered away. Oh God, I'm sorry if you're not high. You know, this is not funny probably if you're straight, but anyway, so your brain is trying to make a version of you and of itself that will be a better fit to reality as it improves its understanding of reality. So, if you understand reality in terms of network behavior, your brain will come to see the way that it interacts with the world as network behavior. I mean, it's difficult to talk about it sometimes in terms of the network upon network upon network involved. But if your brain finds a better grocery store nearby, where the produce is fresher and cheaper than it was at the old store you went to, your brain will no doubt say, I will be better off, and my body budget will be more balanced if I buy my groceries at the other store. Well, your brain is that way about everything, about every decision you make, about whether it will benefit the organism or not. And that depends on its view of the organism. What is the organism? Because if it defines it in a certain way, then what is good for the organism will be different than it was if it defines it another way. It's like there are these two contrasting forces in humanity. And one is cooperation. You need it to work together in small groups. If people didn't cooperate, you couldn't live together. So in order for humanity to exist, it had to have had the ability to work together, to help each other. And at the same time, when we were evolving, there were times when we were in competition with other groups for the same resources. So human beings being what they are, the big guy will beat the little guy, and it will take the resources that the little guy had. It's not a happy it's not a happy way to work the world, I don't think. But it's the way that we had for a very long time. So now we live in a different world. And because everything is so connected, we need to think of ourselves as human beings as all connected with the outcome of what happens. So my brain has to reimagine itself as connected to a much wider community than it started out with. Small down in the South. So my brain thinks it's to its own good. I'm interpreting my brain, right? Oh God, I'll have to talk about communication sometime. Yeah. So that's where we are. I'm sitting here wanting to talk about other things, and I think I've done enough, don't you? I think I've talked enough, and so I'll save it for another day. And I hope you got something out of it, and if not, I hope you're not angry. And I hope it doesn't spoil your day. I hope you have a good day anyway, alright? So have a good day. The people who are angry and the people who are happy, all have a good day, alright? And I'll see you next time. Bye.